Evening. It is Wednesday night, June 3rd maybe, and I got some fun tonight. We're going to talk about God's Ark. Yeah, we always said Noah's Ark, but it's not really true. Noah was just kind of the hired hand. This is God's Ark, where he salvaged the family to keep the line going, heading toward Jesus. But here's one of the deals. For centuries, people have been saying there's no way that two of every creature on earth could have been on that ark. I agree. And so should you agree. It would be impossible. But I very much believe that this event happened. So how did it happen? What animals were on the ark? Again, I believe this is real. I believe it happened, but how? I think I got it figured out. This is Genesis 6, 19 and 20. And of every living thing of all flesh, you shall bring two of every kind into the ark, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the birds according to their kinds, and the animals according to their kinds, and of every creeping thing on the ground according to its kind, two of every kind shall come in unto you, to keep them alive. Keep them alive, we gotta have some food too. So not only animals on the ark, we got some food. Now let's qualify something here before we go any farther. The Bible doesn't say two of every animal was on the ark. That very statement implies species. It's not what we're talking about. The Bible doesn't say nor imply that there were two of every species. Two of every species? When did that word even come into being? The Bible never mentions that. That's something that came about like in the 1800s, species. We're not talking about that. The word species is a term used more modern classification system. Let me show you a kind. Take a look at this picture. That was a cat kind. Sort of to simplify this, then there's different species of cat within the kind. I don't know which one of these species was on the ark, but one pair of this kind was on the ark. And let me show you another picture. It's the same with canines. Take a look at this picture. So we're going to have to look about the total physics of this ark story, this adventure. The entire concept is based on four ideas. One, how big was the ark? Two, how big were the animals? Scientists have that figured out. Number three, how many kinds of animal were there that was on the ark? And number four, kind of a summation. Can we do all this figuring, ciphering, and find out, was the ark big enough to hold all the animal kinds? So number one was, how big was the ark? Let's head back to the Bible, see what it says. It says 6, 15 to 16. This is God talking. This is how you're going to make it. The length of the ark, 300 cubits. The width, 50 cubits. The height, 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark. Finish it to a cubit above. Put the door on the ark in its side, and make it with, pay attention, lower, second, third decks. Now, listen to this. The most used measurement for a cubit is 18 inches. So, it is true, 300 cubits by 50 cubits by 30 cubits, switch that into feet, using the 18-inch cubit, that's 450 feet by 75 feet, 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet high. This is what most believe due to the fact that this is all we've heard. I've told you before, the deciders told you this, and they didn't tell you everything. I've warned you about people that put themselves in the position of the deciders, decide what to teach us. You've got to learn for yourself. Let's take a look at what the Bible says about cubits. 3 verse 3. These are Solomon's measurements for building the house of God, the temple. The length in cubits of the old standard was 60 cubits, and the breadth 20 cubits. There's been more than one measurement for a cubit. This says there's more than one. In this temple building, they're going to use the old standard. There's always been more than one measurement. Early Hebrews referenced a short and a long cubit. And it ranged from 17.5 inches to 20.25 inches. So I took a tape measure, got Carla to help me, and I put my elbow down on the table and measured up to the top of my finger. And guess what? My cubit from elbow to longest finger, 20.5 inches. Then we got Carla, she put her elbow down, measured 17 inches. So what they went by, this 18, where that comes in, you figure your average Jewish man back then, 5 foot 7 or 8, that was normal. And they're getting somewhere close to 18 inches. And that's just a guesstimate. But it's arrogant and short-sighted to believe that there was only an 18-inch cubit. How would we know in this day and age, well, back in ancient Hebrews and Abraham's day and Solomon's day, a cubit was 18? Who said that? Who told us that? Where did they find that? Here's what I found, 2 Chronicles. There's at least 2 ways to measure a cubit. New standard and old standard at Solomon's time. Wow. When you get closer to Jesus' time, how many were there? Well, so we don't make anybody mad, let's stay with the 18-inch cubit for this figures. What we're going to do now is figure the total volume of the ark in cubic feet. We know if you use the 18, it's 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. So if you figure this up, you multiply 450 times 75 and then times 45, and you come up with over 1.5 million cubic feet. 1.5 million cubic feet, more than. So I even think it's a little longer cubit. And I know many of you have gone over to Kentucky to see the Ark Encounter. Yeah, I looked them up just to see what they did. They used the long cubit. Their ark is 510 feet long, not 450. But I'm going to stay with the conventional 18 inches. I do believe it was longer than that. So if we use just your regular 18, we're at 1.5 million cubic feet. So it has 3 floors. You remember seeing that in the readings? 3 floors, God said. Approximately 15 feet each floor. Now, I got to believe that God wasn't into wasting space. So I want to show you a picture of what I really believe it looked like inside the ark, because I think God just didn't build a hollow ark so it was dead space in there. Take a look at this picture. Keep in mind, we've come up with more than 1.5 million cubic feet. So the way landings would have been built in that picture, in that 15-foot tall first floor, there's going to be some landings built in there to house animals. And the second 15-foot middle one. And in the third one, there'll be some landings in there. If they didn't do that, I think it's silly to think that God would have allowed so much unusable space. But here's what I want to do. There's going to be some airspace in there, no doubt. So here's what I want to do. Just to make this real conservative thinking, let's go with half of the space. We know the entire volume was 1.5 million cubic feet. So let's just say we were using half of that, 760,000 cubic feet. 760,000. That's half the volume of the ark. Now here's another one of the things we're supposed to figure out. Let's figure it. How many and how big were the animals? Well, I had to turn to ark scientists. There really are ark scientists. And they've concluded that at the time, there were about 8,000 kinds of animal. Remember, kinds, not each species. Remember the cat kind, the canine kind, a pair of that kind. 8,000 different kinds. This counts lizards too. Figure a dinosaur in there. They figured this when they were trying to figure the average size of an animal. They even figured dinosaurs to be the largest one. And keep this in mind. God's doing this, and if I can think of this, he's way smarter than me. He's not going to bring in there the biggest animals of the kind. If he brought in dinosaurs, he's going to bring young ones. If he brought in some cattle, he's going to bring calves. It's going to be a young adult pair, not the great biggest ones. Why would he do that? So he's trying to conserve and put all these animals on this ark. So now we've got 8,000 kinds, and remember they're in pairs, so now we're talking 16,000 animals. That's all, 16,000 animals. But let's make this easier and more spectacular. I'm going to call it 10,000 kinds and 20,000 animals. I'm going to go way above what the scientists believe the animals, how many kinds of animal there were in pair. 20,000 animals. That's way more than any scientists have speculated would be on the ark. 20,000. That's a huge margin to show you how spectacular this is really going to be. Now let's think about how big these animals are. And we can do this on an average size. So we're going to take dinos and elephants and a mouse and a mole and a shrew, from big to little bitty. And they're going to average this according to scientists. Now I'm talking about scientists that have received grants just to spend most of their life figuring all this out. And I'm thinking, how did I miss out on that grant? But they've come up with the conclusion of the average size of the animal on the ark is actually smaller than a sheep. Remember, we got shrews and moles and mice. Yeah, there's elephants. But when you average it all up, we've got the size of a sheep, slightly smaller. So, here's the question now. Can we get 20,000 sheep on this ark? Remember, I went high with the number. According to scientists, it should be 16,000. I'm going with 20,000. Can we get 20,000 sheep on the ark? So I've decided to give these sheep plenty of space. So I'm going to allot each one 2 foot wide, 4 foot long, and 3 feet high. That's way more than the volume to hold one sheep. Way more. So let's figure the cubic feet we're allotting for each sheep. 2 by 4 is 8, and 3 feet high, 3 times 8 is 24. So each sheep, I'm giving them 24 cubic feet. Got cat problems. Now remember, the ark contains over 1.5 million cubic feet. And we're only going to use half of it. We're going to give up half the volume to just airspace. 750,000 or so, let's round it off, 750,000 cubic feet. Now each sheep, the average size of the animal, is 24 cubic feet. So we take the 750,000 cubic feet, divide it by 24, and that equals 31,250 sheep. If we just use what I did, half the volume of the ark, we can get over 31,000 sheep on the ark. Wait a minute. The ark only contained less than 20,000, and I shot that real high number. It'll hold 31,000 sheep with just half the volume, using half the volume, leaving the rest of it for airspace. But remember, we got to put food and water on there too. But we got all kinds of room for food and water and the animals, and room to walk around. Room to spare. Plenty of room. The ark is definitely big enough to hold all the animals that needed to go on there. So, lesson to be learned from this story? No, I don't know exactly how many animals were on the ark, but I think it did prove that the ark was way more big enough to hold all the animals they needed. The kinds. Remember that, the kinds. If you encounter someone who wants to discredit the Bible, because I've heard this before, the ark is fake, it couldn't put all the animals. Hey, don't let them use the ark story. We know it was big enough, and we know it was real. Go back and run the numbers yourself. It's all there. So this is Terry from McHenry Creek, Bible Stuff Lesson, and I'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.